let me get back to Amarillo. As you can tell, I have a little passion for the opportunities that we have here. We set forth on a goal and objective to come back to refine the specific project scope. To come back to the City Commission and say, okay, here are the operators for the hotel and the multi-purpose event center. Here are the opportunities to take a look at the project budget. That budget has to be on sound input from architects, engineers, based on the project scope. If you look at multi-purpose event centers, the cost, and I've heard wild numbers thrown out like $300 million, that's nonsense. If you look at multi-purpose event centers that are being built, Laredo presently is looking at a new minor league stadium right now. They're looking at a budget of $18 million. They have not bid it out yet. But one that has bid out, right now the project that we're looking at is about 4,500 fixed seats. Sugarland, which is the project that Dave and I worked on before we left, just broke ground on a 7,000 seats, so nearly twice the size. Its construction budget is $27 million. So that's a far cry from $300 million. If it's $300 million, I'll call Jerry Jones, see if he wants to come over. But it's not. The reality of it is these types of facilities are in that between 15, 25, and could go a little higher depending on the size, but here you're looking at something significantly smaller in the $1 million range. So we're going to come back with that project budget. We're also going to look at the public and private impact of these projects. The Amarillo EDC does a good job of estimating the impact of the projects that come to the community. We anticipate working with them to have them do an impact assessment of the projects that we're looking at. We're looking at a funding strategy. We don't know what's public and what's private at this point. Ultimately, the gap, you have a project cost 100, let's say, 100 whatever. If the amount of money that you can borrow and money that you can invest for the rates of return that need to be on the market can only do 75, the gap is 25. That's how it works. Then you take a look at that 25 and say, does the benefits the community receive warrant that 25 investment, and how can it be structured? That's the process that you go through, and right now, we're not there yet. That will help us determine a path forward. As we make a recommendation to the City Commission, it has to be based on the market viability for those elements. It also has to be based on the idea that the city would receive benefits in excess of what it costs for them to participate. The project has to be consistent with the downtown goals, and the project should not negatively impact the community and quality of life from safety, from lighting, from sound, because the next thing is lighting standards for a baseball stadium. You want to make sure that what the spillover light effect is. You also don't want to negatively affect the traffic. Our keys for success moving forward is clearly articulating that vision. Not only clearly articulating it, but making sure that we're outside talking to people and getting y'all's input. We have a series of meetings. We've had meetings with one-on-one, small group meetings, and then large public meetings. This is the first set. We're describing the process. In late June, early July, we're going to come back and hold another series of 5 meetings to show you the progress. No one, I repeat, no one should be able to say when we go to the City Commission, I did not know. If they say that, they're hiding their head in the sand. They didn't want to know. Because we're accessible. All the information on the presentations are up on the web. This is a process that requires participation. It can't be our project. It can't be the mayor's project. It can't be the City Commission's project. It has to be the community's project. And you do that by reaching out. Does that mean that you're going to have 100% support? Absolutely not. I don't think you can get 100% support on anything. But it does mean that you'll have the majority of people believe the project should move forward. One of the questions that comes up is there going to be a vote? Well, let me give you an example. I don't know. City Commission ultimately retains the complete authority to make that decision. But in the case of a hotel, in 2009, the city had legislative changes that allowed the hotel occupancy tax. So when you go and stay at a hotel in this area, if you stay at the new hotel that might be built, there's a 7% tax that's paid. That tax could go to help fund the project. Additionally, there's a thing called enterprise zone, which we're working with the city to create. That enterprise zone, through state legislation, allows us to capture the state's 7% of hotel occupancy tax, as well as the state's 6% of sales tax and mixed beverage tax to go back to that project. So depending on how much that generates and what the gap might be, you may have, yes, you would have public funds in it, but what's there to vote on? Are you going to vote to increase? Now, if there's a vote for taxes, the property tax impact, people need to know what that is, and we'd be the first one to come out and tell you what it is. But we need to demonstrate what the cost and benefits are. There's already been a study that has been accomplished on the hotel. It was done by the city about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. There was a study that was done by CSL earlier this year on a market study for baseball, and we're using those as a starting point. Major milestones. We've moved forward. We've gone through an RFQ process to identify architects and engineering firms. We'll be making a recommendation tomorrow to the city, to the LGC, rather, on moving forward with that selection. We're also identifying operators for the hotel and the multipurpose event venue. We're going to be then conducting an assessment of the Herring. I see Mr. Goodrich here. He's certainly an advocate for his property, the Herring. It's a quality property. It certainly has a lot of benefits, but is it the best option? Ultimately, we're going to be evaluating both and providing that back to the community to assess that. We'll be doing also, we've engaged a company called Robert Charles Lesser, and they are a firm out of Austin. They have offices all over where they will look at the other benefits. When you create a destination activity center like this, you create the other opportunity for people to be there at different times of day. So there may be other uses that may be appropriate, that may help grow the economy. This is a busy slide, and I'm sure it's difficult to see in the back. Let me tell you the purpose of it. It demonstrates that there are a variety of steps in this process. It also shows where we're at on February 15th, and where we'll be at by mid-August. The last thing that I really call your attention to are the stars. Those stars indicate that the different steps in that process, there are opportunities for public discussion, public input, presentations. Again, a transparent process. One thing I was struck, last night we had the opportunity to be at Forest Hills Elementary. As we walked through in preparation for the discussion, I saw a note on a chalkboard, and it talked about how the kids can make a difference. And it seemed appropriate here. It said, if not now, when? And if not me, who? Everybody needs to make a difference. Everybody needs to participate. This is something where the community needs to come together and look at it. This isn't about anything other than making a place where you can work, shop, play, live, invest, learn, that you want a place that you want to live. And so that, I will say thank you for your kind attention, and we'll move into answering folks' questions. Appreciate you.